to new teams, so teams that were outside of the scope last year. These are teams that have opted in for 3M. I want to be part of that journey. So at the moment we have 22 additional teams that have opted in for that and are happy and more than willing to bring to life 3M within any team across the organisation. So please just reach out to any of your GPS specialists for support, and we'll be happy to work with you on that. Just to focus just briefly on the yellow box here. So look, I assume most people know what 3M is, but it's a system, I suppose, to support business alignment and continuous improvement across GI. And with each team working to define a strategic direction statement, I suppose, identify the goals, identify their key performance indicators, that through their running today, they adhere to a 1-3-10 second rule. So in 1 second, can you see if you're winning or losing? Can you see what the trend is? And can you see what actions are being taken around those? And then I suppose from a developing tomorrow side of the house, can you identify the projects or set of projects that are going to deliver the strategy that you've set out? So what are the projects that will enable that future? And then I suppose really about how we manage, track and govern those projects. So if you just flick onto the next slide, Rosaline, it goes to really the heart of the purpose of developing tomorrow. So it is really about building a bridge between the strategy and the projects that we're doing. I'm relatively new to Glanbia, here the best part of, I don't know, a year and a half now maybe. And one of the things that stood out for me from very early on is the sheer quantum of projects happening across the organisation and how busy people were on projects, both within their team, within their function, and then cross-functionally. But I did have to ask myself, how relevant are all of these projects to our strategy and to that team's strategy, perhaps? So 3M Developing Tomorrow allows you to identify the projects that are most relevant to your strategy, and it allows you to prioritize those projects over other projects. It can help with team communication. So, for example, I or somebody on my team might know a huge amount about 3M and how our deployment of 3M is going. Somebody like maybe Owen Brophy, who's focused on the academy from a GPS perspective, might not know it in that level of detail, but might be interested to hear that. We use it as a communications tool. Also, I suppose 3M brings huge governance and reporting capability. I, as a line manager, am assured on a monthly basis as to where the projects that I believe are critical to the success of GPS are at, as I step through them from a Developing Tomorrow perspective. All line managers across the business should be assured and satisfied through Developing Tomorrow that their key projects are progressing on track, and for those projects that are off track, that they have a plan to green identified. I suppose, you know, also no project is going to, not every project is plain sailing. So 3M allows for issue escalation in a very clear way. You can call out what the issues are, what you feel is required to address them, and bring that to the next level. Also, I suppose, look, it's a mechanism whereby you can track and govern your COVID delivery. It's a standard template, so there's no duplication here. This isn't extra administration. This is one single update template for all projects across the business. We're working on bringing 3M not just to functional teams, but also to cross-functional teams and steercos, so that we will have one common approach to project status updates across Glanbia. It will give, I suppose, or gives visibility across that project portfolio. So where are the suite of projects that you've identified and where are they at? And over the course of your 3M conversations, you'll identify new projects that you need to do, and you can add them to the list. You can have a pipeline building of future projects. You might not have the capacity to deliver all projects, you know, immediately, but you can sort of prioritize the projects and you can create that pipeline of projects using 3M. And also, I suppose, look, it allows you to recognise, or 3M meetings as a whole allow you to recognise the efforts of those going above and beyond. And also it protects against project failure. So I think, look, that's it in terms of the purpose piece. Sorry, I've just seen a note pop up there in the chat. So from Barry, I've created my own version of this with the 3M format in mind for tier 3 KPIs for Bellevue. I've attached and open for suggestions with it. Okay, super. We'll take a look at that, Barry.
Okay, thanks for that, Will. So we're just going to move on to how you bring development tomorrow to life in your team. So if you're just starting out and you're wondering, how do I go about this? This is just some simple advice how to get started. So the first thing that you need to do is start at the dashboard, and there is a dashboard created by the GPS team and available for use. So we would recommend that your team comes together and you sit down and agree what are the priority projects that you need to do that will help your team to deliver on both your strategy and also on other commitments that your team may have made. So these may be COVID commitments, or maybe there's different continuous improvement projects that you want to work on, and you can prioritize what projects are most important, and these should all then be populated into the dashboard. And when you populate them into the dashboard, you assign the project an official title, a project owner, you say how it aligns to your strategic direction statement, and then you can go about creating a charter for that project. We'd recommend that you assign someone to facilitate the monthly Development Tomorrow meeting. So this can be one person, or if you want to do it as a round robin, then you need to put some rules and guidelines and responsibilities in place so that each person knows what their role is when it's their turn to be the meeting facilitator. So the meeting facilitator should send out the meeting invite. They should populate the dashboard during the meeting to indicate the status of the project and also that an update was given. And then when the meeting is finished, they should put the slide deck together with the dashboard and the project updates. And that's what the meeting facilitator is doing during the meeting. They're using the dashboard to show what the monthly status of each project is. So there is a space on the dashboard to show if you're red, amber or green. And there's also a space to show did the update happen or not. And not every project will be updated maybe every month because of different reasons. So again, that's okay, but you just need to indicate that the update didn't happen. So this here is just an example of our dashboard for the GPS team. So you can see we have a title, what type of project it is, who's leading it, how it aligns to our SDS. In time, once your process is up and running, there'd be an expectation that you should have a charter, so you should be green there. And then this status here is amber, and it links to the most recent update, which was in August. So we can see that there was an update given in August and the status of the project was amber. If there's no status update given, then you can colour your box grey or red, whatever the team prefers, but it just shows that there was no update given in that month. The next piece then is the project update. So there is a template available from the GPS team, and it's been made available to teams who have started on Development Tomorrow. It's a one-page slide, and the ask is that the project owner populates this for the monthly meeting. And all that you're doing in this slide is sharing what the status of your project is. So is it red, amber or green? You're sharing with the team what progress you've made in the last month. You're also sharing what you plan to do next. And there's an opportunity then to escalate any issues that you might be having. Because it's a team meeting, there's a good chance there's somebody on your team who can help you remove these issues or roadblocks, or the sponsor of your project may be able to alleviate the problem for you. And then there's also an opportunity to give recognition, because projects are a team a team event. So there's often people that you need to thank for their input. And then the final piece is communication. And this is usually the role of the meeting facilitator. So they collate the dashboard and all the project updates into one slide deck, and then they can share it to the team via an email. It can just be a link to your folder, or it can be the slide deck, and also then to save the slide deck to a central folder. So it's available to anyone on the team if they want to go in and look up the project update, or also for the team members should they want to take that project update to another forum. They know the central place to go to get it, to take it to another project forum. Okay, so I'll just hand over to Claire now on the project charter.
Sorry, Rosalind, just a comment has come through from Mike Baldwin there. Mike, you're saying you have you've kind of added a comment line on the Develop Tomorrow dashboard. Are you guys using the one-page update, Mike, to represent the projects yet?
We're moving into that, so
Great.
People don't necessarily have a one-page, like, because a number of these projects are, say, handled by the Innovation Steer Code. There is a kind of an update that would be part of that they're using, maybe as the update for our meetings. But I suppose what we had thought useful was as well just to get it in one. Could you get it in one sentence on the Developing Tomorrow dashboard? Just it's on track, yes, no, and just one kind of a one-line comment or a two-line comment there as well, you know. So
Hi Barry, I'm grand, and yourself? Yeah. Will we test them? 10 plants. I mean, some plants will be simple to test, and then Ballyragget will be wicked complicated. We will, I suppose, depending on how many bodies we have. Well, you'll need a body for every area, you know, for sales, for stock, for finance, for no, well, not really. And like stock would be, we'll say production, it would be store to store movements, that kind of stuff. But there is no one area that has the same process, if you know what I mean. So we'll say butter is different to in Ballyragget to cheese, which is different to powders, which are Ballyragget powders are different to Virginia powders, which are different to Bellevue powders. The production planning, maintenance, purchasing. I mean, if you had a body from all the areas dedicated to this, you know, and not trying to do a day job as well, you should easily do it in 5 weeks. Coordinate, and I'd nearly be suggesting that we'll have to do a lot of the kind of production end of it, or the end of lines, you know, the interfaces, I suppose. The interfaces and any integration, because the general user on the ground wouldn't know anything about that. They just, things happen in the background. Yeah, but I mean, starting in 2 or 3 weeks' time, presumably then GBS have everything done by then. Oh yeah, but yeah, that wouldn't really count in the sense that, like, all the master data that has to be moved over. you know, because that would all have to be done before people could start testing. And we'll say all the roles and all that kind of stuff that people would have to be given in QAS. So like all that kind of stuff would have to be done first. So our GBS saying they're going to have all that done in 3 weeks or whenever. Okay, fair enough. Okay. I'm sure you will. Okay, grand. All right, bye.
Project charter, just have a few tips before you start. So first of all, ensure you're clear of the project requirements and deliverables. So seek further clarification on scope. So what I'm saying here is, you know, a lot of projects come out of workshops or strategies, or maybe it's your boss asking you to do a project, but always just go back and seek clarification. You know, what you think in your head is the project versus what they're looking for might be different. So if you can even talk them through what you're thinking and align before you go writing it, it'll just save you a lot of time about going back and forth, because there may be a miscommunication or a misalignment. The next one is a good one: break large projects into phases. For example, phase 1, phase 2, or discovery phase or implementation phase. So what I mean by this is oftentimes projects can be huge, and you know, sometimes there's a review within a project to figure out what is the next step of the projects, and that's the improvement implementation phase. So instead of having this really huge project that you can kind of see no end to, that can go into a year and a half, if you break them up into smaller chunks such as phase 1 or discovery phase, and you can set out a path, set out timelines, you know when you're going to finish that one, and then you can plan into phase 2. And then again, you can see the end line, you know how long it's going to take, you know the effort, you know the resources required. Filling in a charter to be a team task. So what I mean here is, if you can at all, don't fill a charter in on your own, because you need someone to challenge you, to keep asking questions, to say, I don't really know what you're talking about. And look, these are the best questions you can come up with when you're writing a charter. So really important to bounce ideas around and challenge each other on that. And again, look, it can become an admin, you know, exercise as well if you just do it on your own, because you won't put in as much content, you won't think it through as much. Whereas if you're with one of your colleagues or a project team member, you will really talk it through and suss it out. So again, just keep asking why when you're doing it, and keep reviewing the charter. So you may fill out the objectives, the scope, the milestones, but keep going back and forth and keep tidying it up, because you'll always forget something, and there'll be always something to add to the scope or take out of the scope, or an area that you mightn't have thought of. The next is avoid scope becoming too narrow or too broad. So what I mean by too narrow is you haven't thought it fully through the scope. So what will happen if you haven't thought through the scope is that halfway through the project you'll end up realizing, oh, you've all these extra milestones, all these little parts of the project you need to do. And then the project just keeps going on and on, getting longer and longer and bigger. So that's kind of what can happen. Then equally, if it's too broad and you're trying to buy the ocean, you'll see no end. So again, you know, make sure you're scoping it correctly, manage expectations, and that'll keep you out of trouble. The charter should be clear and understandable. So look, sometimes when we type these up, we make, you know, these big long sentences and complicated, but sometimes you need to just go back and make it really simple. What are you trying to do? What's the issue? What are you trying to do? What's the objectives of the project? And keep trying to cut it back into simple language. And someone like me should be able to come along and read one of your charters. Anyone should be able to read your charter and understand what it's about. And if they don't, that's where you'll get into trouble, because if they can't understand it and it's not understandable, how are you going to achieve your project? Okay, so let's just go into the actual template and just kind of walk through the various different boxes. So you've probably seen this, but it's not always, it can be quite, sometimes it can be intimidating to fill in or know what to fill in or know what's right or what's wrong. So first of all, the project title. So again, just put a bit of explanation on this. If you put in one word, no one really is going to know what you mean by that. So is it a discovery, is it development, is it implementation of something? Just put a little bit of meat on the bones on the title of the project. Equally for, say, your pictures or your diagrams, that'll bring it to life visually, so, and that'll align to the name of the project. So if you have a good picture of an area, if it's a branch, if it's a plant, if it's a piece of equipment, if it's a lab, picture of a lab or something, put it in. Or equally, if it's graphs or something relating to the title, that's very good. The project lead, so who is this? This is the person leading the project. So while it might not be your job to do IT things or finance things or quality things or operator things, you are the person driving the project, so you're the one that making sure that the team is communicating, aligning, that they're, you know, following up on their actions and keeping the project moving. So that's what all the project lead is about. Then when you come to this project opportunity and problem statement box, I like to fill this in with the background first, which is normally either a problem or just the background behind how the project came about. So first off, that will probably be, it'll probably come from a gap analysis, it'll probably come from some sort of intensive review, it'll probably come from a strategy, or it'll come from an event, something happened and you've learned from it and, you know, identified issues, and then follows on with the opportunity. So just give that little bit of background, 3 or 4 sentences, really concise and clear. This come about as part of our strategy, or this has come, or gaps have been identified after a review, whatever it is, and then you go into, there is an opportunity to, and then describe it briefly, develop, implement, improve, and then a short 1 or 2, 3 sentences. Important not to go solutionalizing and telling the whole story. You're just going to improve a system, improve a tool, make something better, add on something, but don't go into the whole story of exactly what you're going to do. Then the objectives then,